Breaking today, Prince William doubles down. According to multiple sources, it's now a matter of when, not if, he strips Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their royal titles, but they're not going to be the only one. Fascinating reporting coming from News Nation, the US news channel, and its head of entertainment, Paula Frolic, who reveals Prince William to change the monarchy forever, no titles for Beatrice or Eugenie. And she writes, Prince William is gearing up to become king sooner rather than later, I'm told. And his vision for the monarchy is going to look very different from his father, King Charles's reign. She goes on, fewer titles mean there is less of a chance for a degenerate like Prince Andrew, now called Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, to slip through. Which means, as I previously reported, Harry and Meghan will lose their titles, as well as Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie. Now, Angela Levin, our royal mastermind, this is something, of course, that I've been reporting for some time. William was very determined to try and make his father be tough, not just on Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, the former Duchess of York, but also on Harry and Meghan. And of course, he wasn't. He was weak. He wanted Andrew to sort of be able to voluntarily say he wasn't going to use his title. That wasn't enough. So 2 weeks later, we had this letters patent, which completely changed the way that royal titles can now be removed in the future. And there is this growing consensus backed up by this new News Nation report that Harry and Meghan will be next. But what she has not mentioned there, what Paula Frolic has not mentioned, Angela, but what my reporting has been, is that it's not just Harry and Meghan, it's also Archie and Lilibet, which is going to cause one hell of a war. What do you make of it? Is this what you're hearing too? And do you think William would be right to take these titles away? A very quick but personal message from me to you to let you know that the best way you can support Dan Wootton Outspoken is to subscribe to my Substack at www.outspoken.live. Substack is a free speech platform that protects me from big tech cancellation and lawfare. Paid annual or monthly subscribers get an extra hour of content with the Royal Uncancelled After Show available every weekday with no advertising whatsoever. You can also message me direct on there. That's www.outspoken.live.
I hear lots of muddles. One person tells me one thing, another something quite differently. So I can't say which way it's going, but I do feel that actually having done it once with Andrew, you can do it again with Harry and Meghan. I would be delighted if that happened, because they have pushed everything beyond the end of the wall, because they just try and take people for granted that they're going to let them have what they want in the end, whether it's 24/7 protection or it's just going to be nasty like that. And Meghan's actually threatened that she's going to take out some sort of terrible thing if it does happen, that she won't allow that to happen. But we'll see what the fight is when it gets going. But they have pushed themselves so far. They have behaved so badly. They still are. And they're taking what happens within the royal family and smashes it because they want to win, especially Meghan. And she's drawn out of Harry all this nastiness that he does exactly the same. And we can't have him going round. We can't have him going round to somewhere where William is going round and he sort of rushes to be there first, so he looks good, and he then says to his father, look, I can be really helpful. In Canada, he said, didn't he, just a few weeks ago. So he's just playing. It's just playing. And Meghan just thinks she's too wonderful to be left out of it. And she will win because she'll go to court if she doesn't keeps her title. I don't know, it's very hard. It's very hard to lose your title. But I do really hope that it's taken away. I mean, she's complained for over 6 years now what a terrible time she had. She was nearly wanted to kill herself. She didn't want to live. Then what trying to get back in there somewhere. Nobody wants her. She's not going to listen to anything she's been told. And so let them live together anywhere they like, do what they like. As for their children, I think it's too terrible that we haven't seen their faces, not because I want to see what they're like, but these little kids must think very strangely of why they can't turn round when they're having their photos taken. They can't understand if they've got a family. They've got no idea if they've got a family except grandma and Meghan's mother. Otherwise, they haven't. So you can't really put them into the Buckingham Palace and say, look, if you feel like doing any work, do it. And if you don't, because that's not going to be a way that Harry doesn't mind that, which is extraordinary. But it's not a way to do that. And I think if they're going to school and you leave them there with a title, Prince and Princess, they're going to get bullied. They're not going to children say, oh, really? They're going to get bullied. That's how children work, because why are they? They're not. And if she wants to do anything politically in America, which is on and off with her, isn't it? She can't do it with the title. So what's she worried about? Just drop out, but she won't, because she's so determined to get her own back. And that it needs someone strong like William who's going to absolutely push it through.
I absolutely agree. I mean, a couple of things to pick up on there, I guess, Angela. The first thing is that these children are being raised in some type of freak show. It's like they are Michael Jackson's children who were paraded to the world but covered up in masks. Yeah, but then remember, he covered their identities and their faces in masks. So of course they're very likely to be messed up, growing up with such messed up parents who are using them in such a mucked up manner. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say on the titles is that I think what Prince William is acutely aware of, and this has certainly been my reporting, is that look at what happened when you allowed Fergie and Andrew to run rampant for so many years, chasing the cash while still sort of being pseudo members of the royal family. I mean, Andrew was an actual member of the royal family, but you'll remember the revelations in terms of Fergie trying to sell access to him, exposed by Maz Mahmood at the News of the World, the fake sheikh. So I think William is acutely aware that even if Harry and Meghan right now are earning their own money, that well is drying up. You've got to take the ability for them to damage the royal family in the future away, and you've got to do that now. You've got to do it swiftly. What's interesting, of course, is that the view is that by taking the titles away from Beatrice and Eugenie as well, he won't be making such a personal point to Harry and Meghan, Archie and Lili, even though he is. It's him saying, look, if you are not a full-time working member of the royal family, you don't need these titles. Just like Zara Tindall doesn't have one of these titles, for example.
Yeah, I agree with that. Zara does fine. She doesn't mind in the least. But I do think it's very difficult to have something torn away from you when your father and mother have behaved badly. And also, William is very fond of the two girls. They've helped out when they've had parties, or lots of people have been there and sort of like nurses, and they go around chatting and being very nice. I think it's very hard then. If you don't get it from the beginning, you're okay. But if you have it taken away from you, I think it's very, very harsh. And maybe he'd slightly think better of that. I have heard, though, that apparently they will be invited to the Christmas party, the two girls, Beatrice and Eugenie, they will be invited to that, whereas their parents won't. That's embarrassing, isn't it? I think it's the right thing to do, because you can't actually punish children because their parents are so badly behaved, can you?
No, but it's very sad for them because they have to make that almost impossible choice on Christmas Day. Do they make the decision to be with the royal family, which is obviously something they believe in very strongly, and be with their relatives, or be with their parents who they do love, but
Their
have had a
parents
very
might not be
difficult time.
together either,
No,
might they?
no, maybe not
Absolutely.
anymore. Angela, King Charles is coming in for a lot of criticism, though. A lot of focus saying that amidst his health battle, and we know how serious his cancer now is, he has not really handled his reign in the most appropriate manner. And this new reporting from Radar Online suggests that he's actually now so in his shell, he only really listens to Camilla, to Queen Camilla. So let me take you through their reporting, Andrew, and then, of course, I'll get your reaction as Queen Camilla's biographer. Radar Online reports King Charles is doomed to remain pig-headed and stubborn to the end, as only one member of the family is capable of challenging him on any of his decisions. A senior household source told Radar Online the dynamic is well understood inside palace walls. They claimed His Majesty is set in his ways, often to the point of stubbornness. If anyone is going to push back, it's the Queen, as in Queen Camilla. She's the only one he listens to when he digs his heels in. It goes for everything from his cancer treatments to his treatment of his sons and wider family. Another longtime aide echoed the view, saying Charles has a deep sense of certainty about how things should be done. It can come across as pig-headed. Camilla is the only voice that can consistently pierce that armor. So, Angela, I mean, firstly, is it fair to describe King Charles at the moment as pig-headed and stubborn in terms of the decisions that he's making? And secondly, as someone who, has spent all that time following Camilla and her influence, is it true that really now she is the only one who can get Charles to see sense on particular issues?
Well, the first one, I think he's a marvelous man. I really do. I spent a year with him and I went round to all these things that he was talking to young people, and he actually really, really cares that young people actually can find something that they can work on and they can do very well. I had dinner there, and the guys there just started learning how to be waiters, and they looked very ill and they'd been sleeping on the street, and there they were serving me and other people with dinner. And the reason was, King Charles told me that I feel that they might want to do something, but if they really want to do it, they have to absolutely do it properly. Now, it's very hard to get a job to do anything that you want to, because it's difficult if you haven't had experience. So I always give them a year's experience in one of the houses, and so that they've got every chance to go ahead. And I thought that was wonderful. I'd never heard anybody say that, and I thought it was a wonderful meaning of his. I think he cares very much. He's going everywhere. He's booking to go to America in the middle of next year too. So he can't be that ill. Otherwise, I don't think it would be mentioned. But with with Camilla, she has very strict rules for herself. He did listen to her right at the beginning, actually, when someone says, you've got to show her, you've got to take her out, you can't keep her hiding. And he listened to that, and he stopped arguing with people when they have meetings because of her. But she doesn't interfere. She doesn't actually tell him how he should be as a king. She actually looks after him and tells him that he might feel not so well, or could he have an early rest. She told me she took all her things that she was going to do from Prince Philip, who she watched very carefully, and she felt he was just right. He walked just behind the Queen, and she never pushes herself ahead of him, and she would always let him deal with the work, with the country, with all that. And what she would do would be to look after him as a human being. So that's what I know about that. I can go on a bit longer, but you probably got no time.
No, it's fascinating. It really is fascinating. And of course, Catherine obviously views her primary role as well as being there to support William. And I think it's very, very different to how Meghan views her role, for example.
It doesn't, yeah, exactly. Meghan, Harry does everything for Meghan, but Camilla watches her husband, and she actually does anything she thinks he needs for him. She doesn't do it for her. She fits in, and she thinks it's very wrong for someone to tell him what to do when he's been in this work for a very long time and waited a very long time while his mother was doing it. And she has nothing to do with that. She won't get involved in that at all, even when sometimes the A's come up and say, look, he's in a bit of a mood, do you think you can help? Well, she waits, she doesn't just say, of course, and go stomping in and tells him, stop that nonsense now. She's there she loves him to bits, and she's there to give him warmth and support, not for her to take over.
But first, quick word on something I rely on every single day: Surfshark. In a world where governments, big tech, and opportunist hackers are all vying for your data, keeping your browsing private isn't optional, it's essential. And here in the UK, we've even seen sites and reporting, some of our own, at Outspoken, pushed behind the Online Safety Act. So that's why I use Surfshark VPN. It shields what I do online, helps me steer clear of censorship, and lets me access the content I pay for wherever I am, even when I'm traveling and want to catch up on shows or sport that don't appear in the particular zone. But Surfshark isn't just a VPN. It's a full toolkit for safer browsing. Clean web block ads, trackers, malware, and phishing links so pages load cleaner and faster. It's a beautiful experience, actually. And if your connection ever drops, Kill Switch cuts the internet so your data doesn't leak. And if you need certain apps like online banking to skip the VPN, Bypasser handles that with a couple of clicks. There are 3,200 plus servers in over 100 countries, so you can switch locations in seconds. Great for finding better online deals. I have to be honest with you, I have snagged some cheaper flights thanks to Surfshark. And you can run Surfshark on unlimited devices too, which means your whole household is covered in one plan. If you want to lock down your data, defend your online freedom, and support Outspoken, head to surfshark.com/outspoken or use the code Outspoken at checkout to get an extra 4 months of Surfshark VPN. That's surfshark.com/outspoken or use the code Outspoken for an extra 4 months on us. You can click in the description box below this video too. But now back to the show. Angela Sarah Ferguson, said to be plotting a major interview. Also rumours that she's touting a book, a tell-all book, but looking for 10 million. That's what she wants, Angela. I mean, it wouldn't have been the first time that she's released a book. I guess what the issue is here, Angela, that the view within the royal family is, well, the only way the Americans are going to pay these six-figure sums for a one-off interview, that would likely be Oprah Winfrey, someone who I think is completely discredited after that interview with Meghan Markle. But, she remains a friend of Fergie. Certainly no friend of the British royal family, so she's a risk. But, when it comes to a 10 million advance for a book from someone who's already written more than one autobiography, she is going to have to spill the beans, Angela. And that's where the fear from the British royal family comes from, because it's probably not going to be good enough anymore for her to just go along with her line of like, oh, the late Queen was wonderful, Andrew's the best husband in the world. No. If you want that moolah, if you want that dosh, the Americans are going to demand dirt. We saw it happen with Meghan and Netflix, for example. So is she a risk, Angela, now? Is this woman now a danger to the British royal family?
I think she is a big danger, but she's also a danger to herself because, as you just said, she's said wonderful things about her husband. He's was the best husband you could ever find, wonderful father. He knows everything. He's just wonderful, lovely, and I am so lucky to have him. When she divorces him, I always say, well, what is she doing divorcing him? But anyway, so it's all nonsense. So if she goes and talks, and it's all nonsense, saying, no, he's dreadful. I've seen him with this woman, that woman is doing such terrible things. It doesn't make sense to herself. So she looks an absolute complete idiot. So she's got to try and think somewhere in the middle where she's not upsetting the children, and where she's actually looking after herself a bit, but is telling the truth. I can't see how she could do it. I think she's going to take the very happy, everything's wonderful line and just say she didn't know about most things, but nobody will believe that because of what she's done and taking her children to see him when he just came out of prison, I mean, all those things. But I don't think she will let out much. She's a very cunning woman, isn't she? So I don't know what we can do to listen about it, but actually someone can give you 10 million, but then if they give it to you, you can say, actually, I don't know that much. I'll try and help you, but I don't know if I will. So, I think it'll be a terrible mess. She's got to find what she doesn't want to dig up.
Meanwhile, Angela, Andrew's friends, Andrea Mountbatten's Windsor's friends are hitting back. And this is interesting. It's via Tom Sykes, the European editor at large for the Daily Beast, who also runs the brilliant Royalist Substack. And they're sort of mocking, in a way, this idea that he might sit for a deposition, and also the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. There's some really in-depth reporting here from Tom Sykes. I'll take you through it, Angela, then get your reaction. He writes, Andrew's friends say there is no way on earth he will ever voluntarily sit for a congressional deposition, an exclusive insight that lands just as lawmakers in Washington grow increasingly infuriated by his silence. One close friend of Andrews told the Royalists that representatives on the House Oversight Committee were merely showboating and issuing self-aggrandizing press releases, insisting they knew the former prince would never agree to testify and could not be compelled to do so. Another friend said, I hate to state the obvious, but no, he is not going to do a deposition in Congress. And in particular fury about Keir Starmer in this. He is the UK Prime Minister, of course. And Starmer said when asked about Andrew that if one has relevant information, you should be prepared to share it. But it was met with eye rolling from Andrew's ever-shrinking circle. Isn't it incredible, one told me, that just as there's talk of a leadership challenge against Starmer, he suddenly decides he's the hammer of Prince Andrew. But this is where things get a bit more interesting, Angela. Andrew's allies have long argued that he is a convenient political piñata. They made the same complaint when the House committee sent that letter. And they go on to say that in their view, Starmer has decided to join a pylon. Where the saga becomes more constitutionally fraught is in Andrew's friend's insistence that Britain will never prosecute him. Now, remember, that's something Andrew Lowney has been saying. The author of Entitled believes that Andrew will end up in jail one day. However, this friend of Andrew says he is the brother of the head of state. He is a lineal heir to the throne. He has had plenty of conversations with Charles over the whole thing because Charles signed off on the payment, meaning the £12 million that went to Virginia Giuffre. The argument essentially is that if Andrew discussed any part of the Giuffre matter with his brother before or after Charles became king, then the monarch is now entangled in that knowledge. Any prosecution in Britain could pull the king directly into the process as a material witness. Cue the ghost of Paul Burrell. When Diana's former butler was charged with stealing hundreds of her personal items, the case collapsed overnight when Queen Elizabeth II remembered that Burrell had once told her he was safeguarding items for the late princess. The monarch is the court and the prosecution evaporated. Andrew's allies insist the parallel is accurate. If the king were drawn into a legal case involving his brother, the same constitutional tripwire would be triggered. Because Andrew could simply say he discussed everything with Charles, and this is why Charles refused to meet Harry while his case against the government was going on. And then what? Cross-examine an alien monarch in his own court? Yeah, right. And that's why Tom Sykes concludes inside the palace there is no appetite for Andrew to be dragged into an actual courtroom after already being strung up on the virtual scaffold of public opinion, and the last thing King Charles needs is for his disgraced brother to ignite a constitutional crisis. So I found that fascinating reporting, Angela, from Tom Sykes. Do you agree with what he's saying here? And is that why there is a certain arrogance from Andrew's circle saying, well, you can say all you want. You can say all you want. We're not going to America. We're never going to return to America, which means there's no way he can be dealt with in America. And the idea that he's going to be dealt with criminally in the UK is for the birds because it would mean a king having to testify at the trial, which is impossible in our system.
Well, actually, in America, they're not allowed to actually give people the problem in another country. It's not, they can only do it if they want to. So why should you? I mean, I don't like Andrew at all, but if you don't have to do it, why should you? Why should you? I don't understand that they're making such a fuss. As for the Prime Minister getting involved, it's just because he thinks he wants to be in the front and see everyone. He did, they was following around William, wasn't he, when they were out looking at all these things in the sky and all that. I mean, it's just pathetic that he does things like that. It's not his business, frankly. As for the king, I imagine that the king has got the sense to say to Andrew that he doesn't want to know all the detail. He just doesn't want bad behaviour, because he's done that with Harry. Harry's tried to gone in and started going through the detail, and he won't listen. He won't even see him. And I think the king is just the same. He's got, he's been around for a very long time, and I don't think he would actually say, well, sit down, dear, and tell me all about it so I can try and make it better for you. He wouldn't, because he would know that if he was talking in a court, then he would have to be called and he would have to say what he knew. And that would be absolutely, I don't know, terrible.
Indeed, and this is the issue. This is the issue with it all, and this is why a lot of people just hoped that this would go away, of course, because there are risks of constitutional crises, and that's also why Harry was so stupid in terms of thinking that if he kept putting his father in this position, it was going to be good for him. And now another letter has been sent off to the UK Home Secretary, meaning, I believe, any communication at the moment between Harry and Charles is impossible. It's constitutionally impossible. So the guy's a joke, because he says, oh, I'm coming over to look after my father. But actually, you're not. You're not, because you're going with this ongoing security battle. But look, absolutely fascinating stuff. Thank you very much, Angela Levin, our Royal Mastermind, who is, of course, the biographer of Queen Camilla and Prince Harry. And if you do want much more of our content here on Outspoken, you can sign up to our uncancelled after show on Substack. The address, www.outspoken.live. Paid annual and monthly subscribers get first access to the after show, twice the length of what you've just watched, with no advertising whatsoever. You can watch live or on demand on Substack. And the other thing is, Substack is a really important part of what I do. It is a free speech platform. I'm protected there from big tech cancellation. I'm protected there from lawfare. You can communicate with me directly on there. I would love you to be part of it. www.outspoken.live.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.